To say that this movie is made by a fanboy of the leading man of this film would be an understatement. The hype around Pawan Kalyan's They Call Him OG has been nothing short of a festival. The audience has been so impressed by the presentation and music of the film leading up to the ultimate release that the makers couldn't help but arrange fan screenings in so many states a day prior to the release of the film. That was the level of demand and hype, so much so that They Call Him OG has one of the biggest advance bookings for a Telugu film that is not intended to be this big pan-Indian release. I have to say this straight out of the bat, you cannot judge me for watching the Hindi dub version of this film, because the Telugu version being screened last night did not have subtitles, as told by some of my creator friends, so I did not again want to be gaslit in a situation where Book My Show claims that there are, the CBFC bloody certificate shows that subtitles are attached, and the first dialogue hits and we see nothing. They Call Him OG, a 3-year waiting game for director Sujeeth to present his favourite star, focuses on Ojas Gambhira aka OG, played by Pawan Kalyan, a former gangster and skilled fighter who has been away from the world of crime and gang wars for over 15 years. However, there is absolute mayhem on the streets of Mumbai, especially being created by Omi, played by Emraan Hashmi and his men, specifically pertaining to a consignment that has been halted. How OG's return is intended to end the havoc that Omi and his men are causing in the lawless streets of Mumbai forms the basic premise of They Call Him OG. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch this film in theatres or not. Taman is the MVP. There is something very interesting that I associate with someone like Taman, who is one of the busiest Telugu music directors, having almost every year several movies in his lineup, and that is that everyone acknowledges the man's talent, but somehow I did not see in the timelines on social media the man getting genuinely praised for his technical prowess and how he beautifully assimilates sometimes with the world and themes of the film. Yes, Taman definitely has a tendency to become overindulgent when his score almost takes over scenes, but the case of They Call Him OG is not only Taman understanding the assignment but aligning with the era and timeline in which the film is set just perfectly. The movie and its screenplay spread around 2 to 3 decades, and Taman's attempt at channelizing the 70s to the 90s in Mumbai, where crime was rampant and gangsters in their own violent ways had a swagger and rage, is perfectly channelized throughout the songs and scores. I mean, it's absolutely insane on how many elevation scenes are associated with this film. Sujeeth literally leaves no stone unturned in not only presenting Pawan Kalyan like a demigod, but giving the respect to even characters like Jimmy, played by Sudev Nair, and Omi, played by Emraan Hashmi. Firestorm and Guns N' Roses are being celebrated prior to the release for a reason, and they fit perfectly in the narrative of the film. Hungry Cheetah, that we all heard during the first glimpse, is almost the anthem of this movie. Even moments where Taman integrates these heavy trance beats as action set pieces reach their madness, or my favorite, when Pawan Kalyan barges into an establishment while driving a truck, it fits perfectly for the mood and chaos happening on screen. Taman, through his music, just highlights the prolonged absence of a worn out yet hungry animal. I kid you not, Taman is one of the biggest reasons if you absolutely had a killer time in theatres with this movie. If it wasn't for him, I don't know what would happen to this film. It's the same impact that Anirudh had in elevating a movie like Jailer. Abrupt action choreography and editing. One of my biggest gripes with this movie is how tough it is to comprehend what is happening on the screen, especially when it comes to action choreography. This is the classic case of what my assumption is regarding the chronology in which things may have happened. The action set pieces are performed, and then the editing pattern is decided, after which the score is integrated into the film, rather than having the editing pattern already in mind to which the action is choreographed. That is why you start to appreciate Taman's work in this film, because you can see that he tried his best to elevate the product given to him. Because the editing pattern done by Naveen Nooli, who I understand is a legend in the game, it's just tough to comprehend what he has conjured up here. There are scenes in which Pawan Kalyan is causing carnage with his katana, and the camera is set up with close-up shots of either his face, his hand, holding the sword, or the sword itself. And this is while several blows are being executed against the goons. So rather than a wide frame that allows us to see this movement, we get close-ups and reaction shots to the blows, never really allowing us to feel the intimidating presence of OG returning. We know that many actors are not physically at their prime, so filmmakers equip action set pieces with movable, stable cameras so that the camera does more of the movement, almost as a means to mask the physical limitations of the stars. But even that is not employed in this film. The frustrating part is that when the movie showcases a young Ojas even engaging in combat, the editing pattern is equally frustrating when surrounded by goons. So it's less to do with the character or the actor, and more to do with the editing choices instructed by the director. The reason why this is frustrating is because there is a heavy build-up in this movie on the aura of OG, of how dangerous he is. But we never really get to see that menacing presence properly through action choreography. Many times Pawan Kalyan will be found simply walking in style while his own men are killing people, or the aftermath of his actions will be shown, where he will just be casually sitting down. So we know his impact because there are bloody bodies everywhere, but how it happened is always a missing element. What's also frustrating is that this is not limited to action, but significant deaths in the film too, where the moment of anguish and pain are not allowed to sit, almost as if Sujeeth is fearful for us to get bored, but the moment warrants us to sit with the emotion versus abruptly moving on to the next subplot. This rush to move on actually is one of the biggest demerits of the movie. There is a moment that should break Pawan Kalyan, make him so full of rage, but rather than allowing for such a scene to be performed, we almost on a regular basis move on to the next action set piece. This emotion guiding the action is not given importance, but the action is. This is the same Sujeeth who introduced Prabhas and Saaho eliminating enemies in a house with the same speed ramping effect in 300, and I believe we did not even get a sliver of that in this film. Other than in one moment, which is the engaging interval block of this movie. Cinematically, however, nothing reaches the peak of the interval block in this 2-hour and 34-minute running time. Color correction, production design, and cinematography. The film is visually beautiful, that is undeniable. The cinematography by Ravi K. Chandran and Manoj Paramhamsa, enhanced further by the production design by A.S. Prakash, actually transport us to the timeline in which the film is set. Usually with the increase in scale and budget of movies, the filmmakers tend to heavily rely on digitally rendered backgrounds, and while this is masked well by the creators by essentially having most of Pawan Kalyan's portions to be shot in indoor locations, the setting of Mumbai from the 70s to the 90s is absolutely brilliant. One of the things that often goes unnoticed is the work done in post-production, in this case done by NAC Studios, where I think the film has generally got its aesthetic that people are raving about since the first look dropped. This is the color correction or DI work done, and this is where the film garners its overcast, grainy yet sharp look that is reminiscent of the lawlessness that consumed the city of Mumbai and has this ominous texture that gives you the feeling that a new surprise may be just lurking around the corner. The film is visually stunning. Other than its choppy editing pattern that will really frustrate you, I have to be honest, you can't fault the movie from a technical point of view. Overstuffed screenplay. This is the problem that Sujeeth was criticized for when it came to Saaho, where the audience that genuinely looks at his potential understands some of the wild swings and ideas he has, but their urge for him to have someone around him to be there just to anchor him a bit and not go astray with every idea he conceives. Sujeeth and his screenplay takes the shape of an excited storyteller at a party or get-together where he starts and everyone seems to be engrossed, and as the night gets livelier, the storytelling goes astray, lacking the self-awareness that the people listening to him are also not as engaged as they initially were. But this keeps the storyteller in him undeterred, for there are so many more tangents to explore. There is a Japanese origin story, there are elements that tie into 16th century Japan, and the wild swing taken with their current predicament will make anyone slightly well versed with Japanese history facepalm. Then there is a romantic subplot, both Priyanka Mohan and Pawan Kalyan lacking any kind of chemistry that makes you even invested in their storyline. The 24-year age gap between the actors also does not help the case, and this is the first time, even though the internet I think unnecessarily trolls Priyanka to great lengths, where I even saw the lack of acting range, especially in emotional moments with Priyanka. You've got a subplot with Arjun Das that ties into Pawan Kalyan and the family, and that drags the storyline in the second half too, with a very half-baked explanation of one's motivations. I had expectations even from Emraan Hashmi as the antagonist in this tale, but his character is extremely basic and flat. His motivation, his swagger again is enhanced by Taman, but it never seems like a worthy battle against Pawan Kalyan. It's the most flat hero versus villain narrative one can think of, and this overstuffed screenplay, especially in the second half that deviates motivations and introduces new characters, does not add much to rave about a film that otherwise had your interest in the first half. On a side note, it literally feels like after Animal, all filmmakers want to shoot their action scenes in the same banquet hall. The bookings might be through the roof for this location. Screen presence. When I see Pawan Kalyan in this movie, especially in the most understated scenes, this is when I realize when people say that some actors just have an undeniable screen presence. This is highlighted especially in the scenes where OG is just casually sitting, waiting for a scene of crime to be analyzed and for him to be questioned. It's a glance that's enough to intimidate anyone, not with dramatic dialogue delivery, but with a simple yet commanding stare. I must say, out of all the supporting characters, I was the most engaged by Shreya Reddy, who still has a bit of Timudu crazy in her eyes. She performed brilliantly, being fearless in the oppressive practices carried out by Omi and his men. Some of your theories were spot on regarding what you were seeing in the trailer, so there is something to be explored in the concluding minutes of this film. However, to state that this movie loses the grip on you as a viewer, especially in the second half, is an understatement. A similar situation that happened to most of us while watching Saaho. My favorite scene of this film is when Pawan Kalyan is questioning a police officer played by Abhimanyu Singh on the whereabouts of something important, and he hauls up the entire station. This very scene is a lightning in a bottle in this movie, for it shows the influence of OG, and if one simply got more of this tension dispersed through the screenplay versus prioritizing one stylized action set piece after the other, I think this film would have largely benefited from becoming more than just a fanboy service meant for Pawan Kalyan fans. This could have been so much more. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about They Call Him OG. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram, the handle is right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.